Hey Bulldogs, Chris Bryant here with today's Network Plus Certification Video Practice Exam. Going to have the question on the screen for you in about 10 seconds, and even if you know the answer, I'd like you to stick around because we're going to do a little discussion with today's topic as well. And also visit my website for this free TCP and UDP course. You don't have to give me your email address. You don't have to give me anything. All you got to do is show up and learn. And we've got the bit.ly links here for you on the screen, and I will put those in the description of this video on YouTube as well. And it's just bit.ly/TCP UDP 1, 2, 3, and 4. Good stuff there. Now, the hot standby routing protocol. What is it an example of? Is it an example of layer 3 redundancy, layer 2 redundancy, automatic load balancing, or quality of service? Now let's take a look at the percentages. And like I said, I posted this question the day before on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, and we added up the percentages to see what answers everybody comes up with. And here, 69% of respondents say it's layer 3 redundancy, 12% say it's layer 2, 11.9% say it's automatic load balancing, and quality of service came in last at 7.1%. And the correct answer for this one is indeed A. The hot standby routing protocol is an excellent example of layer 3 redundancy. You'll see this on your Network Plus and your CCIE exams when you go after that one, which I certainly hope you will. And I want to clear one thing up before we get to the illustrated discussion of HSRP, is that you can perform some load balancing with HSRP. That is way beyond the scope of both the Network Plus and CCNA exams, but you might hear about it in the field, and I want you to know that it does exist, but it is not automatic. It's something that you have to go in and configure. So what are we doing with the hot standby routing protocol anyway? Why is it layer 3 redundancy? Well, we are going to deal with IP addresses here, so we're talking about layer 3. And here, instead of using the symbol for a router that you might be used to, I'm using the symbol for a multi-layer switch, which is a switch that runs at both layers 2 and 3. And you can use those in HSRP as well, but these could just be the usual router symbols, and that would be fine. Now, you can put more than 2 routers in an HSRP group. That's not a problem, but here we're just dealing with 2. One of them is going to be selected as the active, and the others in the group will be selected as the backup router. Now, how we'd set this up is that when you create that HSRP group, you are actually creating a virtual router or a pseudo router. Virtual router is the term you're going to hear more often, but I want you to know both of those. And what happens is the switch is going to think that it is forwarding data to that virtual router, when in fact it is forwarding data to the active router in the HSRP group. So you might be thinking, especially the first time you see it, sounds like a lot of trouble, Chris, if it's going to the active router anyway. But this is why we like it so much. And this is a typical HSRP deployment where we have our 2 multi-layer switches. They're both in VLAN 100, as is our layer 2 switch and our host connected to it. And we've got our virtual router, but notice the IP address. You can actually assign the IP address to the virtual router during the HSRP config. And what happens is you're going to configure those hosts to have a default gateway of 172.16.23.12. But instead, the active router is actually going to be handling the one in this case at 23.1. But here's where the redundancy comes in. If the multi-layer switch handling the data, the active router goes down, one of the backup devices in that same HSRP group is going to step in immediately and assume the workload. So if 23.1 goes down, and it's the active router in this HSRP group, 23.2 takes over as the active router almost immediately. And the great part of it is that you don't have to go to your host and say, well, okay, the default gateway is now 172.16.23.2, because the hosts are going to still be using 172.16.23.12 as their default gateway. So that's where the redundancy comes in. And when we say the hot standby, that's where the hot standby part comes in. The backup router is monitoring the situation, and if that active router drops out of the group, one of the backups, in this case the only backup, will take over as the active almost immediately. That is it for today's practice exam question. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope we see you out at the website for the TCP UDP course, and I will be back here on YouTube tomorrow with another video practice exam question for you. I'll see you then, and as always, thanks for making my work part of your success story.